Hey yo, I'm Miss Linnea Lark, and today it's day 2 of our geometric slab bowls. At this point you should have 2 slabs tightly wrapped on your wear board. The tricky part of slab construction is that your clay has to be at just the right stage of dryness to hold its shape. And the weather is always changing, so we want to try to keep it on the wet side because the sun can dry it out very quickly. This means we're working on understanding when the clay is hard enough to hold its shape, but still wet enough to bend and be maneuverable. This can be tricky for a beginner. You might make some mistakes. It's okay, we'll get through it. Let's take a second before we get into the instructions and just unbag all of our slabs from last class. This will help us see if they're ready to start using. All right, at this point, we're not going to touch your clay slabs until the video is finished, okay? Everybody just sit back and relax and watch the show. But if your slabs are still too squishy and wet by the time this video is over, you're going to need to put them outside in the sun for 5 to 10 minutes. Here's how you can do that. I then place my largest slab directly onto the wear board. I get a large piece of cardstock and place my second slab on top of it. And then I put that slab that's on the cardstock on top of my first slab. You can even use this cardstock trick to move your walls outside later in the process, if you need to. And then I carry my pieces outside and into the sun. Once I'm outside, I will gently move the top slab that's on the cardstock over to the tabletop so that both slabs can dry out evenly. I set my timer for 5 minutes. Once my alarm goes off, I check my slabs. If they feel ready, I bring them back in. But if they're still too wet, I flip my slabs upside down and set my timer for another 5 minutes. Once you have nice, smooth, and set up slabs that are still bendable, you will bring them inside. Now, everybody needs a stencil. I'll pass those out for you. For those of you at home and not enrolled in my High School Ceramics 1 class, you can find the link in my Teachers Pay Teachers page in the description below. And you can buy it there. Thank you for your support. I appreciate ya. Make sure that you carefully cut this trapezoid out with smooth and graceful cuts. Go extra slow, ensuring that you're cutting straight on the lines. The more perfect your stencil is, the better your piece will fit together like a puzzle. Take your time and do a good job cutting. Once your stencil is cut out, check out an X-Acto blade from me and carefully cut out 4 of these trapezoid shapes. When cutting out your stencil shape, try to place your stencil as close to the edge as possible. You want to be able to cut 4 trapezoids for the walls and still have enough clay left over for the bottom of your bowl. Be sure to keep your blade straight up so that you're cutting the clay at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to cut these trapezoid shapes out with a weird diagonal edge. That's not good. Keep that blade straight up and down. Once you have 4 trapezoids, carefully, and I mean carefully, stand one up to be sure that it is firm enough to hold its shape. If it passes the test, you're ready to move on. If it wants to slump, don't let it. Gently lay it back down flat on your board. You don't want to warp the shape so that they don't fit together. You want to keep them nice and straight. And then put them outside for about 5 minutes. See if that helps. Now, once you've got 4 firm but bendable trapezoids, it's time to assemble the 4 walls of our bowl. But first, make sure that you set aside your extra slab. If it's getting dry, spray and bag it because we're going to need that a little bit later to make the bottom of our bowl. And it's going to take a little time to construct. Now, notice that when I hold my 2 walls together, that the corners of the slabs touch each other. They're not going to be able to join that way. We need to cut them at a 45-degree slope or like a little ramp on the edge of each wall, just like on the corner of a picture frame. That way they fit together really nicely and make a 90-degree corner. In order for the 2 walls to meet up at a 90-degree angle, the walls have to be both cut at a 45-degree angle. 2 45s equals 90. Get it? You get it? It's a little bit of math. Don't get too overwhelmed, okay? You're going to be fine. You're going to make it. Now, the ramp needs to be 45 degrees, but we're not going to cut it, okay? I find that it's better to score that angle. Notice how I use a scoring tool to carve down a rough 45-degree angle on both sides of each of my trapezoids. It's important that you hold your scoring tool at a 45-degree angle and that you scratch it deep so that the angle is flush with the tabletop. If you don't go hard enough down, it's still going to have a weird disjointed corner. You really got to go down hard. If you don't burrow it down to the very bottom, the two pieces won't fit together snugly. Now, notice that when I hold the two walls up against each other, that they fit snugly and make a 90-degree angle. If you find that you haven't scored deep enough for the two walls to snugly fit together to make a perfect 90-degree corner, then you can just shave some more off. That's not a big deal. But don't rip the edge, that would be crazy. Once all my trapezoid sides are scored down to a 45-degree ramp, I add slip to one side and then score it again. I then take the two walls that are going to attach and I slowly and firmly press them into each other. I go from the bottom to the top and then back to the bottom again, applying even and gradual pressure so that these two walls become one. Notice that once they're firmly united, a lot of the slip has squished out into the inside corner. I just leave that slip there because I'm going to need it. I take my scoring tool and gently score along the corner seam, and then I roll a small piece of clay into a snake and squish it into the corner. I call this a band-aid because it seamlessly joins the two sides and covers the seam. Make sure to smoothly squish the band-aid so that the corner looks smooth and seamless. If, when you attach your two walls, you don't have any slip squishing out, you are not applying enough slip. You better put some more slip on there, okay? We need that slip. The slip is the glue. All right, so now I've got two walls attached. I'm going to set those aside, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the other two walls. Notice that at one point, I had to do a little bit more scoring on my 45-degree angles because the walls weren't fitting together tightly. It's never too late to do some more scoring, kids. All right, I have two sets of corners. Time to attach them all together to make our square bowls perimeter. I score, slip, score, and then score and squish the band-aid into all the joining corners. I use a rubber tip tool to gently smooth the corners. I flip my bowl's walls upside down and check the outsides of my corners to make sure that all the joinings are strong and smooth. I use my fingers and a firm rib to clean up all the joinings. Once all my walls are joined, I need to rearrange the walls so that each corner is square and the overall shape is evenly spaced. Once my bowl's looking pretty even and square, I place it on top of my leftover piece of slab. I double check that it's still square since I moved it, and I make sure that the smaller side is on the bottom, actually touching the slab base. And then I trace the outside perimeter with a needle tool. I take my bowl off and then use my X-Acto blade to cut along the shape for the bottom of my bowl. I score, slip, score the perimeter of the base, and then I score the bottoms of my walls and gently but firmly rock them into each other so that they adhere. I carefully go around the edges, pushing the walls down into the base, one area at a time, until I've gone all the way around. And then I lift the bowl upward just to double check that the base is sticking really nicely. And it is! Hip hip hooray! I then score the bottom corners with the excess slip that squished out and squish a clay band-aid into all the bottom corners of the base. I smooth the corners with my fingers, and then it's time to clean it all up so that my bowl looks clean, smooth, and like quality craftsmanship. Like I bought it at a store. I use my fingers and a sponge to smooth out all those inside corners. I flip my bowl upside down, and boy, do I have a lot of cleanup to do out here. I start by smoothing everything with my sponge and then using a rib to try to get my walls smooth and straight. But I notice how my corners are very exaggerated from all the squishing I did when I was pinching them together. So I use an alligator tool to sand down the high areas of my walls, just like we did with the pinch pots earlier. That way my walls are more flat and flush. In some areas, there are really deep valleys, and I need to fill those in. So I score, slip, score on some more wet clay, and then use a rib to smooth out the seam around the outside. The goal is to have flat, even walls, and no evidence that these walls were slipped and scored together. A top grade is going to have no seams or evidence of adjoining walls together. Your walls will be sharp and smooth, and all your corners will be 90-degree angles. Keep smoothing, babies. If your clay is too wet, then stick it outside for 5 minutes until cleanup becomes easier. I went ahead and did that for my bowl. It was wobbling a little bit too much and making me nervous. While my bowl was setting up for a few minutes in the hot summer sun, I went ahead and made some feet for my bowl. Won't that be cute? You can make all kinds of different feet, and I want each of you to make a set of feet. I can't wait to see what you make. I tried a triangular shape and an oval shape, just to give myself a few options. Plus, I was trying to let my bowl dry out. I started by rolling out an even snake of clay and then cutting 4 equal pieces. That way I would be sure that each of my feet were using the same amount of clay and would be the same height around about. I pinched the first group into triangles. I wasn't sure how triangles was going to vibe with a square base, so I went ahead and cut 4 more pieces off of my log of clay and made cute little oval shapes. I tapped down the ends so that I could slip and score them smoothly onto the bottom of my bowl. And then I went and got my bowl from outside. And I was ready. About 5 minutes that took me. I flipped my bowl upside down, and then I placed my little feet where I wanted to attach them. I then used water-soluble marker to trace the area that was going to join to the bottom of the bowl. I placed it down, and then it made a little stamp as to where I should score some score. This really helps me score the clay exactly where I need it to be without making a big load of mess that I'll have to clean up after. I go around to each foot and I attach each one. Now I just need to flip my bowl over. Dun dun dun! But look what happens! When I flip my bowl over, the weight of the bowl squishes my little feet so low. Bummer! I could have stopped this from happening by taking my feet into the sun for a few minutes before attaching them. But since I attached them while they were still plastic and super wet, they got squished. That's no bueno. If your feet squish too much, you'll have to cut them off and start again. So be sure to allow your feet to set up for a bit before attaching them. Next, I flip my bowl upside down and carve my name onto the bottom using a wide, sharp metal tool. This is the only way you can receive a grade. You must have your name on your piece, or else I will not fire it. Take that. It's important to get all the clay gunk out of your name and smooth it super fresh and so clean. That way it looks professional. And then I'm going to leave my bowl to dry out slowly over the next few nights. You guys can make a bag taco around your bowl if you finish. But get my permission. If you guys think that you're finished with your bowl, I want you to bring it to me and let me inspect your craftsmanship. Remember, this project is all about smooth, neat, and precise craftsmanship. Once I'm satisfied with your clean, smooth, fresh craftsmanship, I will allow you to slowly dry out your bowl. Once my bowl has slowly dried out, notice how white it looks. It is now bone dry. This is the most brittle and dangerous stage for the clay. It has no moisture in it and no give. When handling your bowl as it's bone dry, use 2 hands. Go slow and be gentle. I'm not monkeying around, kids. You think I'm crazy, but all y'all end up in tears, crying with your smashed bowl in front of me. All I can do is say, I told you so, and then cry with you. It breaks my heart, kids. Please be gentle with these bone dry bowls. Now, here is our predicament. Bone dry is very brittle. It's very dangerous to be touching your piece when it's bone dry, but it's also a really excellent stage to do a little bit of touch-up. You just have to be so careful. Please be so careful. I would legitimately, no exaggeration, say that 80% of the kids who touch up their work when it's bone dry end up breaking it because they don't take me seriously. But I'm pretty confident in my gentility, and so I will grab a Brillo pad and gently sand out the rough areas. When the clay is bone dry like this, just rubbing it is going to sand it down and make it smoother. A Brillo pad is the perfect material to smooth bone dry clay. I also use this opportunity to gently round off the edge of the rim of my bowl. It's important that the rim is smooth and soft so that you can drink your cereal milk out of it without cutting the corners of your lip like the Joker. Once your clay gets fired, it gets hard. It turns into ceramic. And any left behind gunky bits turn into sharp shards once you glaze them. It's so important that functional pieces like bowls that you will be touching with your hands and your mouth are super, super smooth. I'm almost done, you guys, but while I was sanding the rim, I did notice that my legs were a little bit teetery. All those feet that I made, they weren't quite level. So what I've got to do is use a hardy backer board. Those are our square ones with the blue tape around the outside. It's a concrete board that will easily sand my bowl. But I have to be oh so careful while I do it, or else my whole bowl can snap in half. So I hold it very gently but firmly with 2 hands on either side and just ever so gently roll it in a circle nice and flat on that board. And that will sand down my legs so that it's no longer teetery. And now your bone dry bowl can be placed on the bisque firing rack so that we can fire it. Hip hip hooray! Now before I say goodbye, I'd just like you to know that you could save your little scraps of extra slabs and make cute little ornaments. You guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for making bowls with me. If you'd like to learn more, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you'd like to buy the template to make this bowl, check out the link in my Teachers Pay Teachers site in the description below. Thanks for your support, and happy day!